There is so much happening. The Weeknd's last album, as The Weeknd, just dropped. Also, Oscars campaigns are being derailed by old tweets. There's a lot to talk about. The group chat's here. Let's go. I'm Elamin Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. We've talked a lot about Emilia Pérez on the show. It's that musical crime thriller about a transgender cartel boss in Mexico. It has got a gigantic haul of nominations at the Oscars. It's got 13 nominations, leading the pack, including, by the way, Best Actress for Karla Sofía Gascón, who's the first openly trans Oscar nominee. But here's the thing. This is where things kind of go a little bit off the rails. Karla has been in headlines a lot this week over things that she said and tweeted, and boy, has it gotten messy. Reanna Cruz is here, Marlon Palmer is here, Jackson Weaver is here. Hello to all of you.
Good morning.
Hey.
Howdy.
Hi. Let's get into the mess. I love mess. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do today.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay. I just want to take a moment to catch people up on everything that's happened. So just give me a second here. The background is Karla was first criticized, had criticized online campaigns that she felt attacked her and the movie Emilia Pérez. In this interview, so she sort of seemed to point the finger at the team working on one of the other campaigns, specifically the campaign for Fernanda Torres, who's also nominated for Best Actress. She's in the movie I'm Still Here. Then Karla releases a statement. She said, you know what, I did not intend to accuse anyone specifically, but was generally talking about online toxicity. That's the context. And then, after that, people start digging into Karla's social media archives. Specifically, shout out Sarah Hagee, by the way. I don't think she gets enough credit for doing this because she's been on it for a minute. But she discovered some really troubling posts, including racist tweets about Muslims and George Floyd. And then Karla has since deleted those tweets. She has apologized. I'm not sure that apology was entirely helpful. But now we're here and we're left with this conundrum. I just want to go around the table and get some reactions from all of you to this controversy. Reanna Cruz, if there's one hater on the planet left for Emilia Pérez, if there's one left, it is Reanna Cruz. Go in. What was your reaction to this story and these old tweets?
I was kind of gagged, first of all. I think my thought was, perhaps very selfishly, you know, if this is what it takes to get Emilia Pérez to not win those Oscars, like, I'll... That's fine. Like, we could play a little dirty, you know? That was my first thought, though. And then my second thought was, like, I cannot believe they found the most racist trans woman in all of Spain to star in this movie.
I have to say, though, like, Jackson, the tweets are not, like, casually racist. Like, they are deeply racist.
No.
I mean, so, like, they're unambiguously racist. What was your reaction as you were watching more and more of these tweets get unearthed? And you're like, she said what? And she said what in 20? Like, that was not that long ago.
I had, like, you know, smart takes later on, but my first take was, thank God I can stop caring about Emilia Pérez, because up until this moment, I hate this movie just as much as you, Rihanna. Maybe a little bit more, but I hate this movie. But it's always been, Karla is a great actress. She did a great, phenomenal job.
She was good in the movie.
But now I can stop giving those flowers away. I can be a full-on 100% hater because I do not like this movie.
Marlon Palmer, I gotta say, like, the one that took my breath away. I mean, like, there were so many racist tweets that it's really hard to pick from, to be honest with you. But the one that really took my breath away was the one where she was watching the 2021 Oscars, and she saw Daniel Kaluuya win, and she saw Nomadland win, and she tweeted that she was like, are the Oscars becoming the Afro-Korean award festival? And, like, you are now an Oscar nominee 4 years later. I would have just nuked my entire account. Like, what's your reaction seeing all of these tweets surface?
I was shocked, like a lot of us. But also, I feel like for some of the tweets, they were more religion-based, which, as someone a part of the LGBTQIA community, I know there's opposition there for clear reasons. But then it just got really entrenched. Like, you could tell these were deep-rooted, thought-out points that she chose to put together and tweet. It wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment or anything like that. These were well thought out. And so, I think that there's there's a lot to be gassed about. But I think also in Trump's new America, she fits right in.
Ooh, I
which
mean,
is the scary part. That's
okay.
the scary part.
Here's the thing, Marlon. I'm glad that you brought that point up because Netflix has been positioning, I think, the movie Emilia Pérez very much as like the anti-Trump moment movie. Has been kind of positioned as being like, if you want to feel good about supporting trans people, this is a movie that will give you an access point to that. And I want to bring that point up because I think like the timing of this is really interesting, Jackson. I think like the Oscars are just over a month away. People are going to start voting. Like the voting ends February 18th. So like we're talking about in just a couple of weeks from now. And like we maybe think of the entire sort of like award ceremony process as like, oh, they just give it to the most, meritorious kind of
course
performance. But people campaign to be nominated and campaign to earn the votes. And so what are you thinking about as like, like the ways that these campaigns unfold after seeing a story like this one?
Well, I mean, the campaign has been an integral part of Hollywood since almost the beginning. The 4-year consideration thing invented in like the 40s, I think, by RKO. In the 50s, it was often used to like go against McCarthyism. Donald Trumbo won Best Story in the 50s when he was writing under somebody else's name because he was blacklisted. But then bring it up to the 90s. Unfortunately, I have to bring up Harvey Weinstein in this conversation because he was instrumental in making the campaign a political event. He pitted
Professionalize a campaign.
Professional Shakespeare in Love. He pitted that against the much larger Saving Private Ryan. And he had events, he had billboards, he had a campaign with a dedicated PR person. And since that moment, these campaigns have been about crafting a narrative, crafting a story, skirting the boundaries of what's allowed and what's not to, give gifts, give lavish dinners, give big trips. We just saw the Golden Globes change all their rules around what they're allowed to do because they were getting kind of actively bribed. And those huge campaigns have been a huge narrative in the Oscars. And the movies that win, I would say, are oftentimes more so about what fits the narrative and what has been put into the media in a way that it's winning makes everybody feel good.
Reanna, the point that Jackson's getting at there is that like this is Hollywood, baby. Like people want a narrative when they're voting for somebody to win. They want to be supporting a larger story. It's not like, oh, I really like this performance, that's going to get my vote. It's like there is an ethos solidified in the 90s that like what you want is a story. You want to get behind a story that like the winner of this category represents something. And so as you kind of look at the Emilia Pérez Oscar campaign, I would say like the general arc has been from, favorite to villain. Like that's kind of been the arc of this Oscar campaign. How are you thinking about how this campaign has unfolded over the last few weeks?
I think it's really I mean, my personal thoughts on the movie aside, I think it's fascinating because the movie premiered at Cannes to what I read as pretty rave reviews, won the jury prize, won Best Actress as well. And I think that was the narrative, right? Like Emilia Pérez is going to change movies. And then it like came out in wide release and people actually watched it. And now we're at a moment where everybody has an opinion on Emilia Pérez, mostly in my circles, at least, a not good one, right? Like
my circles too.
Yeah.
Right. Like people are not a fan of this movie. But I think like now the more we know about the movie, the more that comes out about the cast. We learn every interesting factoid about set where it's only French people that work on the movie. Oh, Karla's Spanish. She's not even Mexican. Like these factors that kind of like paint a larger picture of the film. And I think also people love to hate a front runner, movie aside, right? And the fact that this has 13 nominations, is leading the pack, has mounted a pretty large for your consideration campaign. Like I can't leave my house without seeing billboards that are like Selena Gomez is amazing and Emilia Pérez, and I'm like, I didn't know we were relying on billboards now. So they're really mounting like a really, really large scale campaign, and I think it's a combination of like, in my opinion, the movie being like actively harmful and people just, wanting to hate a front runner no matter who the front runner is.
Jackson, I mentioned that the Oscars voting, it begins February 11th, it ends February 18th. Stories like this end up changing how people interact with a movie, how they end up reacting to the idea that it's going to be the one that they want to vote for. I'm saying this in the context of the past few Oscars have had, the Best Actress nominees, for example, coming out and saying a nice thing about one of the fellow nominees, being like, let me introduce to you this other person who's in this movie. movie. I'm just so, in awe of their work. I'm just gonna come ahead and say it. I don't think they're gonna do that because I don't see any other nominee being like, what I want to do is say, is give a 2-minute speech introducing Karla Sofía Gascón, especially after a story like this one. So how do you see this playing out for the Oscars as we kind of get closer to them?
I mean, this has been, if we're talking specifically about the Best Actress category, it's been a little bit messy for very varying degrees, but the Mikey Madison had the intimacy coordinator kind of issue.
Mikey Madison from Anora said that she specifically did not want an intimacy coordinator for Anora, and then intimacy coordinators were like, that's not cool. That's not okay for an actor to say something. It's
not at the same level, but it's a little bit messy. Yeah. We saw Cynthia Erivo having some also negative tweets come out around a fan made poster that they think that silenced her, and that became a whole kerfuffle. Fernanda Torres from I'm Still Here came out, revealed that she wore blackface in 2008. Yeah. So Demi Moore is kind of the only untouched element of that actress category. But whether or not this really fundamentally changes the race, it depends on the about 10,500 voters. They already were voting for Emilia Pérez when there was a lot of negative controversy around its depiction of transgender people and Mexican society. But one thing that Karla, unfortunately for herself, did was not only have racist and anti-Islamic tweets, she insulted the Oscars gala themselves. She said it was an ugly gala. Yeah. And I'm not sure if the voters, the community meme, Britta, where she's like, I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at animal cruelty. I think they might draw the line at ugly gala.
I'm just saying, when you describe it like that, really what you're describing is a political campaign plan. Mm-hmm. You're describing people running for office, and then their opponents finding some dirt finds its way to the public, and I don't know what level of involvement the opponents had in bringing up that dirt, but now it's going to affect how everybody sees that story. Obviously, this is not a thing that we are done with yet. We're going to keep talking about this, but for now, we're going to leave it there and switch gears to this. That is Wake Me Up from The Weeknd's new album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. He says it's his last as The Weeknd, and he's going to be retiring that persona. Look, absolutely never beating the want to be Michael Jackson allegations at any point in his career. That's just not going to happen. Marlon, I'm going to start with you. I think before we get into this new record, The Weeknd has been The Weeknd for 16 years now. He's a 35-year-old man, which is to say he's been The Weeknd for half of his life. That is a long time. As you kind of think about this persona, how has it held up? How's it held up? Him being like, I'm a creature of the night who's probably doing drugs and trying to find someone to have sex with.
Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's working.
Yes.
Is it translating? Absolutely not. To me, I don't know. I still don't know what the story is. In listening to this, I don't get a better idea of the story. It all just seems very redundant. I don't know if anybody else feels that. It just feels very redundant. A lot of the subject matter, a lot of the themes, the textures of the album just seem very repetitive. And I'm glad that this is the funeral. I'm glad. Honestly, I'm at the wake. I'm eating the chicken. I'm good to go.
I will say for the idea that it's not connecting, I buy that point, Marlon, because I do think that he's been spending a lot of time with these themes that are I think we've covered. I think this is well covered by now, Mr. The Weeknd. Perhaps we could find other things to maybe sing about. Jackson, as you think about the fact that he's so wildly successful, he's one of the most streamed artists of all time. What's the reason for that, do you think?
I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but my supposition from the outside is that I have this theory around celebrity where the way to have lasting celebrity is to have a mystique, an illusion, a curtain between you and the fans. Don't be too accessible, because once you are, when the criticisms start flying, people realize the emperor wears no clothes. This is a real guy that is not that cool. So when you have other celebrities like Beyonce or even Keanu Reeves, people that aren't constantly posting, constantly accessible, they have this this kind of like legendary status. And that pairs with the kind of like persona that a lot of musicians try and like go through, and like Taylor Swift has all these like mysteries trying to like piece apart. It's an artistic endeavor, sure, but I think it's also a very tactical way to make yourself seem smarter than you are. And I agree with Marlon. I don't think there's a lot under the surface in these songs, but it's at least mysterious enough that people are like, what is he saying? There's another decade to go for us to try and unsolve this riddle. I don't know if there is.
No, first of all, let me just write down these notes. Develop mystique. Okay, thank you so
you're
much. I clearly got to work on this. Rihanna, like, look, in interviews about this album, The Weeknd said that it came about after he was on stage at a concert in Los Angeles and just couldn't keep singing, had to cancel the show. You were there. Do you want to talk about that experience and that reaction? What was going on?
It was pretty crazy. I have never been at a concert before where they have to stop. And mind you, this is a stadium show, right? Like, this is a sold out stadium show in Los Angeles. You have a packed crowd. I think about an hour before the show ended, and he hadn't started yet, somebody came on stage to film a scene for The Idol. So like, it was already a show where we were like, okay, like there's clearly is some blurring of some lines between like, what is real, what's happening, who's The Weeknd, who's Tedros.
The Idol is the HBO show that he created. I'm going to get to The Idol in just a moment, but sorry, keep telling the story.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, no. So it was interesting, you know, we already had this kind of blurred performance lines, what's being filmed and what's not, and it was just interesting.
What was it like for you to like hear him later go like, that was actually a pivotal moment for me, and you were like, I was there, I saw that happen, I saw him retreat from like the persona of The Weeknd?
It was kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, you see The Weeknd as having this persona that is very infallible, you know, untouchable.
Yeah.
And then you look at a moment where he's like crying, right? Like talking on stage and is like, I can't sing. Like, I need to leave. It kind of breaks that fourth wall.
Crying?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I mean, to me, that's really heavy. Like the idea that you've kind of existed in a persona for such a long time, and then you start to have this experience where you go, I think this has taken up too much space, too much artistic space. I'd say all of this is complete conjecture because The Weeknd doesn't talk. He has developed and maintained the mystique that we're talking about that you just mentioned, Jackson. So we're kind of like left to sort of like try to piece together certain pieces here. And look, Rihanna mentioned The Idol. The Weeknd had a really tough year last year. You know, like so like the HBO's The Idol came out. He stars in the show. He co-created with Sam Levinson, who made Euphoria, and like who wants that? But The Weeknd's acting was panned. The show was panned. People called The Idol torture porn and said it pushed toxic masculinity, but kind of didn't really seem to affect The Weeknd, or at least like that's how we kind of understood it, because he's putting out a movie in May that is inspired by this album. It's called Hurry Up Tomorrow. It's a suspense thriller. He wrote it. He stars in it. Jenna Ortega's in that. It's a little bit like The Idol never happened. Jackson, what's going on there?
I mean, I would also say, like, I have been kind of maybe a little negative towards him, but I should say The Weeknd is a phenomenal musician. He's a phenomenal singer, and he writes good music, and he has at least the ability to make it seem like there's depth there in his artistic endeavors. So that's the reason why he's able to kind of skirt some of this criticism, because he makes music that is good. It's not my particular favorite, but it's good enough to have worldwide fans and to be one of the most streamed artists in the world, and it's inoffensive in a way that kind of anyone can listen to it. I think the music that really hits your soul is going to be a bit alienating to somebody that doesn't exactly share your passion. This is wide enough that it can hit a bunch of different people, but he has that mystique and he has that allure and he has that ability to be kind of outside of criticism that would take down other artists, because we don't really know who he is. He lives behind this persona, and maybe it's cracked a little bit with that crying on stage and with the performance of The Idol, but over a decade of this performance has kind of built up a fortress around him. That means The Weeknd can keep going for a little while at least.
Marlon, when I think back to the early moments of the Weeknd, this is the guy who started releasing music anonymously, and there was like so much mystique. Shout out Tumblr, when we were like, hey, who is this guy? What is this music? Yeah. He put out this cover of Dirty Diana, and I was like, oh, I'm into this. And there's a clear sort of attempt to be like, I'm in the lineage of Michael Jackson. I want to have the conversations that Michael's trying to have. And then you kind of get the 16 years of maybe saying the same thing. There comes a point where you got to go, as an artist, what is the thing I'm trying to say? So then you get to this new record, Hurry Up Tomorrow. Do you hear this album and go, oh, he's figured out what he wants to say? Is that there? Or are you like, no, it's not here. Maybe it'll come, after he sheds his persona?
To me, he's in the same space. He needs a wellness check. I think we need to get him.
Yeah. Enjoy the show. Oh my gosh.
I can't tell if it's the character that he's speaking from or himself, because he's speaking from this perspective for so long now.
Yeah.
Like she said, it kind of blurs the lines, right? And so I don't really know if he has these unalive thoughts as much as he says he does. Throughout this album, there's a lot of that happening thematically and lyrically. I learned drugs give you IBS. That was different.
XO.
He has gone on like a sobriety thing that he spoke about, but in this album, it would appear that he's relapsed numerous times and has even been hiding his drug use from people he's very close to. And so I just don't see any growth as a human since House of Balloons. And it's kind of fitting that the album ends with a transition into High for This. So it's like, I'm like, I don't really see growth in that area. Maybe the character itself doesn't grow, and that's what he wants us to take away from this.
Yeah.
But himself, I don't think changing his name and getting rid of this character signifies any growth as an artist or just even as a human being for me. I just don't. I need to hear it in new music, probably.
Rihanna, if there's one hater left for Emilia Pérez, it's Reanna Cruz. If there's one lover of the Weeknd left, it's Reanna Cruz. As a Weeknd fan, does this record deliver for you?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
Short answer, I agree with Marlon. Long answer is that I didn't really like the singles for this record. They underwhelmed me. So when I was pressing play on the album, I was like, I really hope that this is not the singles, where they're kind of nondescript beats. So there's the funk song that kind of like the Brazilian funk song, right, with Anita, Sao Paulo, that is kind of like a watered down version of Baile Funk. Like it just like was not my favorite. But listening to the album, it's like you have, the song you played at the beginning, Wake Me Up, starts in this like recreation of Thriller kind of, right? And it's self-referential in the sense. Yeah.
Was that like a direct sample?
It was not a direct sample, no. But however, it was clearly be like, this is meant to evoke you thinking about Thriller as you listen to it.
Okay.
Right, which is referential considering like The Weeknd, has spent, as we've talked about, his whole career shaking these Michael Jackson allegations, and there's a lot of references to current Weeknd, to Weeknd at the beginning of this trilogy. There's a song on the record, Take Me Back to LA, had a song on After Hours, Escape from LA. There's this duality in his music, and I appreciated that. I think like the intertextualism of it is really lovely, but I don't know, I could only take so much like disco influence synthesizer start to go a little crazy.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So, yeah.
It's that and the trauma.mp3. I just can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time.
I literally have a minute left, so each of you is going to get 25 seconds to give me a recommendation. Rihanna Cruz, you go first. What's up?
All right, I've been watching this show called The Pit. It is a medical drama set in an emergency room.
Whoa.
Okay, and here's the thing. Every episode is one real-time hour in the shift, like 24. And it is a 15-hour shift. That's it.
People don't say things like 24 anymore, and I think that is a shame. So
exactly.
Marlon Palmer, you got 20 seconds, pal. What do you want to recommend?
I've been watching Black Comedy in America. It's a show that just highlights every aspect of Black comedy in America. So they have 70 sitcom episodes. They got Richard Pryor, Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle. All these standalone episodes are like about an hour long.
Yeah.
And they dive into just everything Black comedy. It's amazing.
Jackson Weaver, 20 seconds to you, pal.
I've been watching exclusively old movies this year.
Okay.
So I'm going way back, 1966, a movie called Misunderstood with Anthony Quayle. It's not related to anything modern day. It's just a really solid movie about a really sad kid and his dad, and you should watch it and cry.
When you hear the words, I've been watching a movie from 1966 from Jackson Weaver, I'm like, that's a likely place for him to be. I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. It's been really great. Thank you. Thank you. Reanna Cruz, culture writer. They're in Los Angeles. Marlon Palmer is a comedian and co-host of Ace and Marlon in the Morning. Jackson Weaver, a reporter at CBC's Entertainment Unit. My name is Elamin Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. We'll be back next week. We'll see you then.